and are just some of the words that you may hear in today's podcast. Enjoy! Hello and welcome to the Perfect Information Podcast, a board game podcast that is balanced, serious, and above all respectful, with me, Ben Maddox, and the dictionary definition of elegance and poise.
Yoros, Panayotiri.
The spirit is many things, Georgios. It is what pushes us.
It's what I put into my drink.
Indeed. Ouzo is your particular tipple, isn't it?
It quite is, yeah.
Do you put the water in so it looks a bit like jism?
No, because I'm not a tourist.
Oh, so you just drink it neat?
Of course.
Is that how the real Greeks drink it?
I'm a real Greek and I drink like this, so therefore, yes.
Are you a real Greek?
Of course I am.
How do you define a real Greek?
Well, I like all the things that are typically Greek.
Come on then.
I like ouzo. I like tzatziki. I don't like
Spartan forms of man and boy tutelage. Do you identify more as an Athenian Greek or a Spartan Greek?
I'm closer to Saloniki than Athena.
So explain this to me, Georgios.
Well, there are two big metropolises in Greece: Athena, which is Athens, and Thessaloniki, which is Saloniki, I guess. And I'm since I have family there, it's Thessaloniki for me.
But how do they? So you know, you got your Spartans that characterize themselves by covering their muscular bodies in olive oil and not eating food and fighting all the time.
Yeah,
and then
the
you
fascists.
had the decadent Athenians who would pontificate and think and ruminate.
No, those were the Democrats. No.
And then Thessalonikians, what did they do?
We're just run-of-the-mill normal Greek people enjoying life, having a drink, arguing with our parents or our siblings about nonsense.
Where does moussaka come from?
Oven.
So, the Greek area of oven is where moussaka was originated. So, Georgios.
Yes, bin.
After you've taught us about everything Greek,
I think there's almost nothing left about Greek history that I haven't spoken about today, yeah.
You have got the mental power, because you've just listened to Georgios' Greek Hour.
Yeah.
That was a jingle.
I noticed. I still don't understand why you don't have a career in marketing.
Really difficult to put Greek names in a jingle, Georgios.
Well, ask some Greeks.
Because they should be snappy and that, and Greek names have about 1,000 syllables. Anyway, so what are we talking about this week, Georgios?
We're talking about genre, which is a pretentious way of saying something that I used to say wrongly until I was 12. I used to call it genre.
Is genre a Greek word?
Sure.
All right, so we're talking about genre in relation to games.
Yes, because it's a board game podcast, which people just listening now probably wouldn't have figured out up to this point.
And so, okay, let's define our terms, though, to start off with.
A board game is a game with a board and sometimes cards. I think that's about it. We don't need any more terms.
What about...
See, you don't have anything.
I'm trying to think of a game without a board, Georgios, and I can't think, because the Resistance kind of has a board, doesn't it?
There you go. It's a board game.
Secret Hitler obviously has a board.
Obviously.
Werewolf. Board game?
Sure, why not?
No board?
Oh, there are a lot of bored people in Werewolf.
Hey, do. Okay, so, yeah, let's define our terms. When we talk about genre, what are you talking about? We'll talk about in general terms, and then we'll put it back into board games.
Well, generally, genre is a way to catalog, to categorize, to label things within a larger medium. So if you're looking at, say, film or literature, you have individual genres in there, or music. It's one way of avoiding this problem where you want to see a movie and somebody asks you what kind of movie do you want to watch, and you go, a movie, because you don't have any way to describe what kind of movie you're into.
Are genre specific to the art that they're describing? Do you have sort of unique genres to film, unique genres to books, unique genres to theatre?
Yes, kind of, but but it's very, very deep, this distinction. Basically, the problem with genre, or rather the challenge with genre, is that genre terms are by definition fuzzy, malleable. They don't have clear technical definitions of what they are and what they encompass and what doesn't fall into them, but they're sort of like words in a wide map, and every new entry of, let's say, film falls somewhere between certain genres. Certain films fill up the genre, sort of copy everything that we associate with the genre. Some just borrow elements from one genre and another.
Well, I guess you have your sort of straight down the middle unambiguous thrillers, your straight down the middle, unambiguous farces, your Ray Cooney run for your wife things, right?
Maybe, but even there, you could make an argument that even those can be argued to incorporate elements of other things as well. So, for example, thrillers can easily verge into straight-up horror movies. Action movies can easily verge into thrillers or even into comedies without losing their essential action filminess, and so, which is definitely a word.
And so what are you saying that, do you think that things fall between stools basically almost all the time with genre, but you pick the element that's closest to the one you would put it in and you make that its primary descriptor?
Yeah, basically. I mean, genre, you can never have a pure example. I mean, you could in theory have a pure example of a genre, but genre isn't something that happens before you come up with a movie. A movie shows up, and then if enough movies sharing certain characteristics appear over time, you start developing your own genre. Like in literature, for example, I think it was in 1970s, when the sort of dystopian science fiction novels would show up, but they weren't in the distant future with planet travel and stuff like that, or stellar travel, but they were sort of on Earth, like 20 years in the future, and a lot of technologies, corporate influence or corporatism replacing governments, stuff like that. Eventually, these were termed cyberpunk. There were enough of these stories to show up.
To then give it a genre.
Exactly.
And then I guess they start to eat themselves, right? So then writers or filmmakers or creative people come with the aspiration is, I want to write a cyberpunk novel.
Exactly. Yeah. And eventually once, a certain trend sort of establish itself, people will reference it. People will react to it. People will try to build on top of it, expand it, undermine it, subvert it, all kinds of things.
To what degree do you hold with the progressive granularity of genres? So electronic music is a great example, right?
Yes, there's one type of electronic music.
There are, spoken like a true middle-aged man.
Yes.
There's
electronic music and there's noise.
And, I was really in the 90s, I was really into electronic music, right? And I could have, I think, pretty much described music that kind of objectively sounded almost exactly the same. But I could have said this fell into this pigeonhole, this fell into this pigeonhole, this fell into this pigeonhole, and I could have explained to you why.
Right.
And do you think genre... Well, two questions, I guess. Genre, people might describe it as a sort of a buying guide.
Okay.
I like X, so if you describe this movie as X to me, you'll sell it to me.
Sure.
Right?
Okay.
I like comedies, I like thrillers, I like horrors, I like romantic films, right? After that, when it becomes completely granular, does it then become a kind of badge of knowledge? I can differentiate the subtle differences that change this from this aspect of the genre to this aspect of the genre, and I'm able to explain it. Therefore, I am a possessor of a knowledge that unrefined people simply don't possess.
You're such a dark outlook of people. I think I think one of the biggest.
Let me just address that for a second. It's not dark necessarily. People love to be parts of groups. I don't think that's dark or light. And people have their own jargon and their own lexicon to identify themselves as parts of groups. And I think that can be very, very beneficial. I don't think it's necessarily bad.
I think it's the implicit assumption that people use this specialized knowledge to set themselves apart or above others that I'm not sure is true.
That's where I differentiate with you. I agree with half of your statement and I disagree with the other half.
Oh, fair enough. Oh, you want to explain it now?
I'm going to explain. Are you going to allow me to do this?
No.
It's a two-person podcast, Georgios.
Allegedly.
No, to separate, sure. I think people love to identify themselves as parts of groups separate from others. The implicit assumption that has a status implication, I don't think is necessarily true.
Oh, yeah. And
I like Star Trek and I like to identify as a Star Trek person, and I like to identify with this small group of people who identify as Star Trek people. I don't necessarily think I'm better than you who like football, though. Sometimes that comes...
You are aware that you're completely lying through your teeth now, right?
Well, sometimes it comes into it, but I don't think that's a given. I don't think people love to be parts of groups. People love to identify themselves. I like to identify myself as a gamer because it puts me in a certain place where I know if I'm in a certain situation, I can always find people of a like mind.
All right, yeah.
And it enables you to do that, right?
All right. So to go back to the original question, I think in addition to what you suggested, the idea that as a buying guide, which I really don't buy, and the question of, identifying with people of a similar deep knowledge of a certain topic, I think the third most important element of genre knowledge is that it allows you to contextualize any entry into the medium, be it a film, be it music, be it a game even, and sort of see the interconnection, see where subversions happen, see where expectations are frustrated and where they're, dealt with.
It gives you an analytical toolkit, right?
Yes, but this, more than analytical toolkit, it gives you a quicker and a better entry into the thing itself. Think back of movies. Imagine watching Evil Dead 2 and just, knowing the different, sort of recognizing the influences, recognizing the slapstick comedy as well as, gross out body horror and zombie ideas and all the mixtures go in there. And if you sort of have this background, if you can differentiate between those disparate elements, the movie becomes so much more interesting, so much more open to you, so much more accessible.
Well, this is the point, isn't it? This is why knowledge of a topic is desirable.
Yes.
And I don't think it's elitist to say there is a distinct possibility the more you know about something, the greater you can appreciate it. And I don't think that's an elitist statement.
No.
All it takes is a little amount of work to familiarize yourself with the tropes that exist within something.
Yeah,
right?
I think we'll just add to that the more you know about a topic, the more at some point work you have to do to sort of not let it overwhelm you. Because this is something that I've seen happen a lot, and it occasionally happens to me as well. You end up analyzing instead of just appreciating something for what it is. I've had these long discussions way back with people who were really into film. We went to cinema together, watched a movie, and at some point they were so deep in the rabbit hole of analyzing the movie, analyzing the tropes, the genre definitions, the way these things happen, that they couldn't just take a step back and just appreciate the artistry of the whole thing.
Which is whenever you listen to critics of anything,
right,
talk about anything that they're criticizing, they sometimes fall in the trap of this has to be utterly, completely innovative to the nth degree. Otherwise, I won't enjoy it because I'm so jaded by the amount of volume of things that I've seen.
Oh yeah, it never happened to me, obviously. Never.
Yet what's very interesting is I find that if something is truly successful in what it's attempting to do, that analytical eye tends to fall away and you tend to become submerged in the experience, and then only afterwards that you then pick away at things. Anyway, this is great, but we haven't mentioned fucking board games for 15 minutes.
At least not in any significant way, that's true.
So let's talk about board game genres.
Yes.
And let's talk about the broadest strokes primarily. So there's two obvious genre definitions that people talk about, and then you're going to introduce a third, which I think is valuable too, and we'll debate whether that's a genre or whether it's a result of genres. But broadly speaking, you have theme and you have mechanics.
Yeah, I think...
And games fall into those two, and then they get subdivided under those two headings, right?
No, actually, I would phrase it slightly differently, in that...
I'm sure you would.
Of course I would. In that there are sort of two axes on which you can sort of play certain games. And that there's the mechanics axis and there's the theme axis. The themes being a zombie movie, being a farming a zombie game, a farming game, guess a war game in the wider sense. And then there's the mechanics distinction. Games like this is a deck builder, this is a worker placement game to tie into this thread that's happening right now. Well, more or less right now on our guild, which you should join because a lot of people... Oh,
Christopher, I adore your hysteria. I adore it.
Oh, you make some interesting points. Yeah, there's deck building, there's worker placement, there's social deduction maybe. All these elements that sort of describe a game by way of its mechanics, trying to pigeonhole it into a certain group, giving you an idea of what you're dealing with. And the same goes with the zombie games. The sort of zombie games sort of imply a certain style of gaming. Not always truthfully, but it sort of gives you a
mechanics
vague idea.
Are implied by the theme, is what you're saying. Whether that actually turns out to be the case, you assume that a certain mechanical packet will be employed if it's a zombie game, for instance. I'm
not sure. Maybe. I haven't thought about this much. I would need about 10 or 15 minutes to think about it, and we don't need to stop the recording for that. But yeah, sure.
A sort of bit of psychology here. And this is just an idea I've had, so it might be bullshit. But do you think certain types of gamers describe games mechanically, certain type of gamers describe games thematically, or is that not correct?
I think they do, but I'm not sure it has to do much with psychology so much as habit and culture. I mean, if you're surrounded by people who only talk about games on a mechanical level, you're going to pick up this the jargon, or at least the type of language to talk about games. If you're surrounded by people who only speak about themes, you're more likely to think of games in way of theme.
But I've played games with people, and especially games that require a bit of reading or something. You know,
awful.
There are people who will. So Eldritch Horror. I remember playing Eldritch Horror once, and I was playing with a group of people, and there was one guy who would skip all the flavor text and would just go to the mechanics, and I had to tell him off and say, "No, you're going to read all of this. I bloody paid for this."
He sounds like fun.
It was glorious, but. You know, his focus was solely mechanical.
Yeah.
And I assume he would describe games solely in a mechanical way, yet he was surrounded by people who would describe games in a thematic way.
Right.
Do you think it's a brain thing? Do you think it's a surrounding thing? Do you think it's a nationality thing?
No, I don't think it's a nationality thing at all. I think it's somewhere between what you personally find easiest to grasp, and sometimes that's theme. That's the things you see. That's the art, the depiction of what happens, the sort of the kind of things you're dealing with, whether it be, limbs of somebody and damage you take from a zombie bite, or whether it's, a sack of grain and some wheat and some wine or something. And some people might be more familiar with mechanics, like this is a kind of game where this is about resource management, or this is about attacking the person in the lead, stuff like that.
And I guess it's about what's important, right? What's the defining characteristic of the game? So if you talk about a zombie game,
right,
it is about implicitly knows what that entails.
Yes, and they're usually wrong.
And so explaining that it's a zombie game is the important factor. They're going to be attracted by the fact that it's a zombie game, that it has this survival horror aspect, right?
Yeah, mm-hmm.
Whereas to say it's a farming game doesn't help you, does it? Because there are...
If you don't know the genre,
Yeah, there are thousands of farming games, and within that, using the theme genre descriptor is not going to help you. Whereas if you say it's a worker placement game, or it's an action selection game, or it's a dice management game, or it's a set collection game, that's going to help you much, much more, right?
Yeah, sure. I mean, if you're, unlucky like the two of us and having played enough games to sort of have this mental catalog of ways in which you distinguish games, then yes, all of these things you said are very helpful. If you're lucky enough to only, enjoy games for what they are, you probably need a bit more, yeah.
But genre descriptors, especially when they become granular,
right,
it's basically a language amongst the cognoscenti, right?
Oh yeah, sure, but that's true of all genre.
Because, of course.
I remember a colleague of mine way back then spent, I think, an entire afternoon explaining to me all the different subdivisions of heavy metal.
Yeah, because you don't...
And the chronology and the history of how they developed.
You don't deploy that kind of weaponry if people aren't going to be responsive to it, right?
That depends on their social skills.
Yeah, exactly. There are some people who I remember once, I've got a friend of mine who actually bought us the copy of Role Player.
Oh, nice guy. I like people buying us stuff.
This is about 20 years ago now, before he became a very famous computer programmer. I was around his place and he was doing some programming, right?
I see.
And I said, "So what are you doing?" And he turned around and he said a sentence to me. And I'm sure the sentence contained words that were English, but I had no idea. And I said, "Sorry, could you make that a bit more basic?" And he went, "Oh yeah, sure." And then he said something to me which might as well have been fucking hieroglyphics.
Yeah.
And I said to him, "Look, imagine I'm a 5-year-old kid. Can you break it down to me in terms that are that simple?"
That was the original concept of the podcast, right?
Right, exactly. And he could not get himself out of that jargon mode to be able to explain. And,
that's interesting enough. That's a phenomenon I see in a smaller scale with a lot of gamers though. And it's, I understand where they're coming from. It's sometimes very difficult to recognize which words are implicitly, recognizable and what they mean, even by context, and which aren't. Like, worker placement. If you listen to this podcast, there's a very, very high chance that you already know what worker placement means. So if I say so-and-so is a worker placement game, you immediately go, I know what he's talking about. And you don't need a long description of what it entails and how it differs and so on and so forth. But if you're not a gamer, if you're not familiar with all these genres and you sit down and play a game and somebody tells you this is a worker placement, you'll just get,
Well, this is where the two you use axes.
Yes.
I prefer to think of them as columns.
But I'm supposed to be the Greek guy. And you're maybe it's the German Greek connotation.
Well, that's right. Doric. I think of them as Doric columns. Right. If there are any architects listening to this...
This is a great joke.
Phil, by the way. I have no fucking idea what a Doric column is. Come on the fucking guild.
Oh, no, please
Tell
don't.
me what a Doric column is. Anyway...
You're a Doric.
Thank you. I take that as a great compliment. Thank you very much. But, so then it's about deploying genre descriptors for different scenarios, right? So if you have someone who doesn't know what a worker placement game is, if you're playing Yido, for instance,
right,
I wouldn't deploy, this is a worker placement game where you're then collecting resources to deploy tasks. I would say this is a game about clans fighting over dominance of ancient Tokyo. So I'm using a genre theme descriptor,
right,
rather than, whereas if I'm talking to you or I'm talking to some of my gamer friends,
right,
it's much, much quicker for me. It's a worker placement game.
Right. Well, again, to pick up what I said before, I think it also has to do with if you know what a worker placement game is and you play a game that kind of fits into worker placement or does something new or unexpected with it, then knowing that it's a worker placement enhances your appreciation of it. Like, for example, for a long time, worker placement games were based on blocking. If one person took a space where they put a worker, nobody else could take that space.
Right.
And then you started having variations on this idea. The idea that you can also take this space, but it might cost you some additional resources to take the same space. And this was, if you were selling the second game as a worker placement game, that person would all of a sudden appreciate the subtle difference between the two.
And it's that wonderful where standardization then promotes creativity, right?
Right.
So if you have Lancaster, I think probably Lancaster might be one of the first to play around with that sort of unwritten rule of worker placement. Once the space is taken, it's taken tough shit.
Right.
And Lancaster plays with that. Now, I don't know Matthias Kramer, and I don't know what his motivation is, but I could easily imagine that
World domination, probably.
That he says, I love worker placement. I think it's a great mechanic, but you know what really fucking bugs me? That I can't go to a space when someone's taken it. How do I solve that problem?
It bugs me as well.
And so I love that sort of, this idea that the canonization of something then promotes rebellion. You know what I mean? And I think...
It's very, very emotive language, but I agree with the sentiment.
I mean, in a greater and a larger scale, right? Yeah. I mean, you can talk about it's the 500th anniversary of Luther at the moment.
Right.
And so, you know...
There's a German board game called Luther the Game, which has one of the more dullest covers and dullest boards I've seen in 25 years. It's amazing.
But, you know, I mean, you can talk about rebellion on that sense, or you can talk about rebellion in Lancaster subverting the worker placement.
Clearly, Lancaster is a more accurate use of the word rebellion because words stopped meaning things a long time ago.
Yeah, but the point is, it's sort of that genreification of something. In some ways doesn't limit, but gives you limits to then break, which then can promote creativity, which I think is an interesting way to think about it, right?
Oh yeah, no, I think these distinctions sort of help both designers as well as players, provided they know a little bit about the various genres, to appreciate ideas and innovations, to appreciate variances in individual games.
Well, I think it's that thing, if anyone has ever done anything creative, ever done a creative venture, whether that be writing or acting or whatever, giving yourself limitations is incredibly liberating.
It can be, yeah.
Because it's that idea, if it's the tyranny of the empty page, right? You have an empty page and absolutely every single possibility whatsoever, picking a possibility. It's that story I when I was teaching students here in Berlin, right?
Right.
And they would talk about what their experiences of coming from East Berlin to West Berlin. And they would go into supermarkets and there are 17 brands of tomato ketchup. Which bloody tomato ketchup do I buy? You know what I mean?
My experience was shaped by video stores, where we would walk into a video store and see these hundreds and hundreds of movies.
Right.
And the only ones I would gravitate towards were the ones I already knew, which kind of sort of beats the purpose of a video store to go find a new movie. So yeah, I recognize that problem, that like too much choice, too much freedom is a bad thing.
That's why the Spiel des Jahres exists, right? Fundamentally, because there are thousands of games released every year and people need a hook to grab onto. Someone recommend something to me, for God's sake, because I've no bloody idea.
This is quite literally what I hear a lot about from German retailers, the ones I know. They're basically saying, yeah, once the Spiel des Jahres is announced, people are going to buy this more or less sight unseen. They're just going to ask which games won the Spiel des Jahres, and if it's the new one, they don't have it yet, they'll pick that one.
Well, if you look, I mean, no one had heard of bloody El Dorado. I think Magic Maze was actually getting quite a lot of traction.
Right.
But El Dorado really, I mean, it's certainly amongst the English language.
It isn't out yet.
Well, this is true. But nevertheless, now everyone's doing reviews of it.
Yeah.
Doing playthroughs of it and all of that, because the Spiel des Jahres...
Bandwagon.
Well, of course, but it gives you a hook onto which to grab and say, okay, this is at least worth trying.
Yeah.
So we've got theme and mechanics. These are two axes or two columns on which we define genre. You've got a third.
I do have a third.
Explain your theory, love.
Basically, I think... Actually, it's not even my theory. I'm just developing something which I think a lot of people are using instinctively as well, and that's the terms Ameritrash and Eurogame. And what those actually encompass is less theme and less mechanics and more feel. The idea of that the experience of playing this game will be of a certain type, will be of a certain kind. It will either be maybe boisterous, it will be loud, it will be maybe very, very surprising, which you would probably put closer to Ameritrash. Again, it's a genre term, so fuzziness all around. And the Eurogames, which are more internal, which are more about strategizing, more about planning ahead, more about making optimal moves, trying to sort of make the best of the situation you find yourself in, and hopefully working towards some sort of payoff at the end of the game.
Okay, so I've got a question for you.
Another one?
Yes.
Haven't you run out of questions by now?
I'm a very inquisitive young man. I was often complimented.
There are two lies in that description.
I'm a man and I'm inquisitive.
There you go. 2 lies. Go on.
Well, I'm sure there's one lie. I mean, the youth is an obvious lie, but the young, the inquisitive, and the man. Where's the second lie, Georgios?
Well, you figure it out and you tell me next episode.
I am.
Derailment.
So you are arguing here for feel being a genre. This feels like this.
Yeah.
So I've got a question for you.
Okay.
Is this a genre, or is feel a result of genre? You have a mechanical genre, worker placement, and therefore it's going to feel like this. You have a thematic genre, zombies, therefore it's going to feel like this. Do genre give birth to feel, or is feel something on its own that exists on its own as a genre?
I'm not sure that distinction is really that helpful, because when you look at, say, let's compare it to genres in other media. Let's say film or music. Of course, let's take music for example. Of course, the interpretation of the artist of a song is going to matter, as well as the composition, and they will result in a certain feel. At the end of the day, though, you don't distinguish between genres based on the artists. Not often. I mean, there's some standouts, like this is a David Bowie record, or this is a Beatles record, or whatever, or Stones record. And sometimes on the composition itself, though nothing springs to mind. Talk about ignorance. But at the end of the day, you use these descriptions to describe feel. Rock music implies a certain feel. Heavy metal implies a certain feel. And I think that's true of movies as well. A horror movie implies a certain feel. A romantic comedy implies a certain feel.
It's not a scared movie, is it, though? It's a horror movie. It's a different thing. It's a thriller. It's not a exhilarated movie.
Oh, no, but...
You know what I mean?
Yes, I mean, the terminology is not taken from the emotion that it invokes, but the terminology transports a certain emotion. I mean,
the genre implies a certain feeling, but the feeling isn't the genre itself.
Yeah, the feeling itself isn't the genre you're naming. Like in board games, Eurogame is not a feeling. Ameritrash is not a feeling, but both of these terms imply a certain emotional reaction.
I agree with you completely. So then explain to me how feel for you is a genre.
Well, feel is basically the basis on which we distinguish certain games. And this is actually one of the reasons I wanted to talk about this, is that we're still looking for terms to describe a certain experience implied in a certain game. I think the one game that sort of goes in that direction is social deduction, because that's for most social deduction games I know invoke a certain feel in playing.
Antagonism.
Among other things. But a certain, it sort of describes a certain type of experience you're going to have when you play a social deduction game. So when you tell somebody this is a social deduction game, they're not necessarily thinking about mechanics. They're not necessarily thinking about themes.
Well, they're not thinking about mechanics because the mechanics are always the bloody same in every social deduction game going. So,
no,
but anyway,
not.
Carry on.
No, they're not.
I'm being facetious. I'm allowed to be facetious, Georgios.
But not wrong.
Fuck off. Speak.
So basically, social deduction is one term that seems to slowly gain traction as describing describing a genre and transporting the feel it recreates. So I'm arguing, and I'm saying Eurogames kind of do that, Ameritrash kind of do that, but way back we had an episode where I argued we should get rid of these terms because they're insufficient. I still think they're not particularly good, but I'm realizing now that the way they're used is to sort of suggest a certain feel.
They imply an experience, right?
Exactly. And
Although I think, and as you say, I mean, they're obviously malleable.
Yeah.
They obviously are not direct analogues to something. So if you think about, it's a game we always cite, I think. It's one of the few that we, I think, unabashedly agree on.
Yes.
Which is Chaos in the Old World.
Right, yeah.
I think if you had to, and it's really difficult, where would you put it? If you had to put it in Euro or Ameritrash, where would you put it? If someone said to you, I've got a gun to your head, you have to put it in one box. Which box does it lie in?
I think personally,
remember gun to your head.
Again, I don't feel.
I'm going to blow your fucking head off. Put it in a box. I'm going to blow your fucking head off. Tell me. I'm going to fucking blow your head off.
I'm going to. I would side with, even though the mechanics are strongly influenced by Eurogame style games, I think I would put it into Ameritrash.
Me too. But what's really interesting is the experience it implies isn't this raucous dice chucking thing. It's a much more cerebral, thinking, strategic. Well, certainly in my experience, at least, planning game. It doesn't.
There is planning, yeah, but
it doesn't have that zombie side sort of sort of thing,
Yeah, interesting enough, this is literally how we play Chaos in the Old World.
I mean, the beauty about an audio medium is you can describe terms in simply just a chain of noises, Georgios.
Exactly. It's all very...
I played this game and it was gang, 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 gang.
I think we just found a new rating system. Yeah, no, but Chaos on the Old World has always been, when I've played it, it's always been a very boisterous game. It's always been about table talk. It's very much been about not arguing, but,
contention.
Not even
fun
that.
Contention.
Yes, I mean, but trash talk, basically.
Yeah.
No game has provoked trash talk in my gaming group, which is not particularly trash talky, that like Chaos on the Old World did. So to me, Chaos on the Old World is strongly, even as an experience in the Ameritrash sector, even if a lot of the mechanics are obviously influenced and tightly designed in the vein of a Eurogame.
Well, I mean, it's interesting because I am the kind of person that promotes that kind of feel in kind of every game I play. Really.
Right, yeah.
I do that. I tell people off for stealing my stuff and all of that sort of stuff. So I promote that feel, but that's something that exists within me. But I do agree with you that games, simply by saying what they are, they're more likely to promote a certain experience, a certain feel than something else. Right.
Interesting enough, though, sidebar, of course, players influence the feel of a game as well. And much like you could subvert the experience of watching a certain movie if you're watching it with certain people, you can subvert the feel of a game if you're playing it with certain people who are intent on turning it into something else. So a thinky game, I don't know, I can't think of a thinky game, ironically enough, but you can turn a very thinky game into something very loud and boisterous just because of the way people sit down and just, take over the game, which is not a bad thing. I'm just pointing out that sometimes the discrepancy between what a lot of people argue fits into a certain genre and doesn't fit into the same genre once it hits the table comes down to players just, taking it and making it their own.
Well, this is where I sort of have issues with your idea of feel being a genre descriptor.
No, not a descriptor, but an axis and lacking terminology.
Being a genre in and of itself is what you said.
Is it?
It will go back on the tape if you wish.
I don't know. I don't know
where it was, so that might take a long time. But and that's the thing. Feel is so subjective in a way the genre isn't, right?
No.
Worker placement. I mean, you can fiddle around the edges of what worker placement is, and we're having this argument about whether Side is a worker placement game. It isn't a worker placement game. You can putting something on a board does not make something a worker bloody placement game, by the way.
No, chess is a worker placement game.
Exactly. Exactly. Oh, I had a great draft. It's brilliant. Placing them workers. So, but, you know, a worker placement game is a pretty sort of specific term. And you can fiddle around the edges, but pretty much you know what you're going to get with a worker placement game. And again, you're only being a fiddly dickhead if you argue that something's clearly not a worker placement.
Actually, no, I think I would just add to that this is basically where, I don't know if I mentioned it before we recorded or if I mentioned it in this podcast already, but I would make the distinction between using worker placement as a description for mechanics and as a genre. They're not the same because the latter, as you say, is clearly defined. This mechanic is a worker placement mechanic because A, B, C, and D. But the genre of worker placement, this is actually the problem with using mechanics as a genre descriptor, in that genre descriptors are by definition fuzzy, and then you get to this weird situation where people want to call something worker placement, even though you don't want to call them that because mechanically it doesn't fit.
Well, this is the point. You have to accept your proposition that genre is by definition fuzzy, and I don't necessarily agree with that. I think there is
genre theory.
Great. I haven't read bloody genre theory, right? But the point is, in experience, I'm not an academic, so I don't judge things by academic rubrics because that would be ludicrous because I'm not an academic, right?
I'm not sure that follows, but go on.
Well, of course it does. I can't judge things by an academic rubric because I don't have the knowledge, but genres don't exist solely within an academic sphere. They exist in a practical sphere for people who aren't academics, right? So my definition of a genre might be very, very different from genre theory, but I'm not talking about genre theory here. The point is, there are things within genres that seem to me sort of slap bang right in the middle, absolute sort of examples of what that genre is.
Yeah, sure.
There are movies that are thrillers, that don't really border over into horror, that don't border over into action, that are sort of straight down the middle thrillers. I saw one the other day and it was bloody dreadful, but that's not the point. It's unambiguously part of that genre.
Sure.
I think Yido is an example. I think Agricola is an example too, that are unambiguously worker placement games that fall slap bang into the middle of those genres. And using worker placement as a genre term then isn't fuzzy. It's absolutely specific.
Well,
and so genre therefore isn't fuzzy in this case. It's absolutely specific.
I'm not sure a term becomes less fuzzy just because you find an example on where it applies neatly. A genre term, a definition of a term is fuzzy regardless of whether you find examples where it fits in. I'm not saying that games aren't fuzzy. I mean, the games are fuzzy. I'm saying, yeah, you're right. Agricola is a very good example of a worker placement game. Yido I haven't played, but if you say it's a worker placement game, I'm going to trust you on that and say, yes, this is probably a very, very clear example of what a worker placement game is like. But that doesn't mean that worker placement as a genre doesn't have fuzzy edges.
I didn't say it didn't.
Right.
I just don't think in every case, I don't think the term genre is intrinsically fuzzy. I think at the outer edges of everything, things are fuzzy. I think politically, in terms of art, in terms of everything, there is fuzziness around the edges. That's where edges are. They blur into other things because everything is on a continuum pretty much. Nothing is segregated black and white, right? But I think genre terms, if I use worker placement, so if I talk about Spirium, even though Spirium is a different kind of worker placement to Agricola, I don't think it's a fuzzy descriptor if I say Spirium's a worker placement game. So it clearly is.
Right. Okay. I'm not quite sure where we're disagreeing. I think we are at some point, but I can't figure out where.
Let's just disagree for the sake of disagreeing, Georgios. This is what we do.
I agree with that.
This is our... Don't you ever fucking agree with me. All right, so, just to wrap up, do you think the way we think about genre within games is beneficial, non-beneficial, or falls somewhere in between?
Well, I think it's definitely beneficial. I think for various reasons we mentioned in this conversation, they're clear, sensible uses of genres as descriptors, as ways of both recognizing certain games, sort of putting them in a certain area and knowing, all right, if I know 4 guys in my group are going to like, let's say, drafting games, so we avoid worker placement for the 100th time. If they like drafting games, or the mechanics of drafting, they might like a game that includes this mechanic as a central concept. You have a way of analyzing games based on these categories, based on these genres, and recognizing where they fit well, where they do what they're supposed to do, where they subvert expectations, like deck builders that are about deck thinning. I think Xenon Prophecy was all about deck thinning. There are all kinds of different ways in which genre can help you recognize what the game is doing and recognizing, all right, this is where it's supposed to go. And I'm not sort of, my strategy isn't going completely counter to what the game's supposed to do. And therefore I'm going to have a bad experience.
And also, I agree with all of that. I think you're absolutely right about all of that. But also, where genre becomes useful. And this is a slightly more esoteric thing, but it's part of the aspect that I like. Where genre becomes useful for me is that I'm able to absolutely, away from the gaming table, utilize my knowledge of genre to pass the time in a pleasant manner. I'm able to sit at tables with people and dissect little genre deviations or where things are specific genre, just to have a nice chat with people.
Right, yeah.
And the possession of that jargon, the possession of that knowledge, whether your knowledge is complete or incomplete, regardless, is also a very, very important aspect to genre. It puts you in the know, which I think is also good.
Yeah, it's an additional layer of appreciation of that thing we like to do.
I'm TC Petty III, and this is Deep Design with TC Petty III. The complexity of playtesting. One of the difficulties in making games with a certain level of complexity is that depending on the skill level of the players, the game may fail, and it may not be the game's fault. Last time, I talked about being an ambassador of gaming and how gateway games serve an important purpose in bringing newbie gamers to the fold. This time, we take that conversation to the next level and get right to doing the nasty. And by nasty, I mean sexy, complex board games. The reason gateway games exist is to provide a player the tools they need to play deeper gaming experiences. Some people are stupid and never get past that stage. Or I don't mean actually stupid, but stupid in that way you say stupid when you want to insult somebody. Point is, gateway games provide the fundamentals, and a complex game provides the main course. Just like you're not going to hand a 10-year-old a James Joyce novel and say, have fun. You should have the foresight to recognize when players may become overwhelmed. People love challenge, but they don't like work. Players are the key. There are simplistic games, there are extremely heavy, complex, and complicated games, and there is most every other game in existence that lives somewhere in between. Creating a complex game is not a mark of gaming excellence, nor is it a regrettably specific and pretentious exercise for only hardcore gamer types. It's about creating a game that is not necessarily made for the average Joe, a gamer's game. What's the true definition of a complex game? I don't know, but it's helpful as a game designer to know if your game is light, medium, or heavy, and if your game is best enjoyed by players that have properly paid an entry fee. Know your players. First, let's define our player types, not Bartle's taxonomy of gamer types. We'll get into that on some other episode. When it comes to the types of gamers, the video game crowd internally uses 4 semi-technical classifications, which I'm going to steal now. Newbies, casual, core, and hardcore. Newbies are gamers that are assumed to have little to no skill sets. Tabula rasa, they're fucking noobs and need to get good. Or, in other words, there's no specific demographic that newbies belong to, old or young, they simply haven't been introduced to gaming. A very light hand is generally required, as their tolerance for rules is low. Casual gamers, somewhat surprisingly, may consider themselves avid gamers, and they may also be occasional social gamers, but the common factor is that they do not actively engage or seek out the newest challenges. Complex games aren't outside of their possible range, but odds are they're sticking with lighter fare and feel comfortable enjoying things that they know. Core gamers are the target for most any company. These are people that play games, purchase games, and actively seek out new experiences within a wide range of the gaming spectrum. There are a lot of core gamers that don't really feel the need to play complex games, but generally they have the ability and energy and mental capacity to do so. And they do so, and they exercise their opinion with their wallets. Hardcore gamers, strange bunch. It's very rare for a hardcore gamer to strictly play lighter games. These are the gamers that are self-involved, elitist, opinionated, and sometimes disparaging to the other classifications for not fully embracing complexity and complication of true gamers' games. While this mentality can be toxic or cause them to cling on to only one type of game, or just really be goddamn annoying, they're also part of that core market. So when you have the opportunity to playtest your complex game, Core and hardcore gamers are going to be the backbone of quality assurance. It's not elitism to exclude casual and newbie players. It's kind of survival. And entry fees, or prerequisites, are the reason why.
Paying the entry fee.
Let me be clear, if it's not already apparent from the glazed eyes of countless potential gamers when confronted with a rulebook longer than a double-sided page, some games have things you need to know before you really should be playing. I call it entry fees, or prerequisites, or board gaming knowledge tech trees. If a person has played or is familiar with the appropriate style of game, then they have paid the entry fee, and two important things occur. The player understands how a base mechanic functions, and the player understands the associated actions or strategies that complement it. The key aspect of an entry fee is that instead of the player focusing precious brain power onto learning the UI, they're quickly able to adapt and start making short-term and long-term strategic choices with a vague idea of the possible outcomes. For example, Lords of Waterdeep is one of the most basic worker placement games available. Play as a guy, get a thing, craft recipes to score points. That's it. I would not teach Kalis to a brand new player, though, because not only do they have to know place a dude, get a thing, collect things to complete recipes, they also have to understand timing and that they'll get a certain thing before other things, so they need to plan ahead, and recipes can build any building from a big stack of 30 of them, and turn order is important, and to watch out for that brutal player interaction that might happen, but it might not. It's fun, but it's a lot. And it's long. Sometimes you can trace an easy path. Play Modern Art or Raw before Power Grid before any 18xx game. Play Citadels before Glory to Rome. Play Baron Park before Princess of Florence before Feast of Odin. You get the idea. But it's not really about any one mechanic or finding that perfect game as an introduction to the content in another game. It's about getting used to the brain rhythm that all those different rules tweaks provide. Someone just getting into gaming will not have that. There are entry fees to be paid in all types of artistic genres. Case in point, I've talked about how Roger Ebert has made the statement that video games could never be art. I like to imagine that he applies the same logic to tabletop games as well, so I will for our purposes. I disagree with that dead guy, but I have discovered a new reasoning behind his thought process recently. Games, sadly, require more work. As a viewer of a movie, it's relatively easy to enter into the experience. Like a painting or a play, all we have to do is open our minds to accepting a reproduction of reality that is just that, a farce. The world filtered through one or more brains of an artist or craftsman and recycled back at our senses. But it takes very little, if any, effort to simply observe. But games require active participation and physicality. And as we've seen with art installations, that's not necessarily the issue, as play can be incorporated into art. But for the art behind gaming to be experienced, there is an interface that must be accessed, understood, and then must recede into the background. For a video game, that's a controller scheme or on-screen display. For a board game, this is rules and a functional layout of components. If the interface is unfamiliar, strays from an established standard for no functional reason, just generally gets in the way, or needs to be redefined constantly by flipping through a rulebook, players will have extreme difficulty allowing that veneer to fade. Point is, when someone feels like they're spinning their wheels or overwhelmed, you're not going to get feedback that makes the game experience better. You're going to get people saying things like, I don't know, it's tough to hold more than 5 cards in my hand at a time.
Types of entry fees.
There are many types of entry fees that aren't rules or mechanics. For example, game length. A lot of people are used to games like Risk or Monopoly that long overstay their welcome with playtimes over 3 hours. But to actually play a game with strategic depth that warrants a playtime of that length is a daunting prospect. Why can't we just play Uno? Why can't you just swallow a light bulb? There's also scoring. What are victory points and set collection scoring, and how do you consult a conversion table, even a simple one? There's abstract concepts like spatial reasoning with miniatures and movement, cards that have words that interact with other cards with words in a specific order. There's strategic considerations like keeping the leader in check or temporary alliances. There's game types like cooperative games or semi-co-op or one versus all. There's terminology like hand, tableau, phase, turn, round. There's social cues, universal symbology, table etiquette like announcing what you're doing on a turn, patience, variable turn order. I feel like there should be a song to remember all those by. It's a lot. I think it's fantastic, stupendous, even splendiferous that newbies or casual gamers are excited to play a new game. And I'm not trying to kill that spirit. No one likes to be told they're stupid, and that's what it sounds like to someone when you recommend that they do not play your game or any game. It sucks. I wrote this segment in honor of a really bad recent playtest that I had, and subsequently cut out all mention of it on this episode. It wasn't bad because the game fell apart or I had to make major revisions afterwards. No, it was worse. It was bad because it was a waste of time. I put a medium weight game in front of some players that were not ready for a medium weight game, even though they insisted that I do so. What ended up happening? We never finished it. It took 3 times longer to play than normal, and I was still fielding rules questions at the halfway point at 2.5 hours in when I stopped the game. I wrote a single line of feedback in my notebook from the game. That was it. As a seasoned game designer, I should have known better. But here are my special tips to you.
Define your game.
Do you want the game to be complex but accessible to newbie players? Then pile them on. But in reality, probably not, and especially early in development, you'll want competent, experienced, patient players. Define the weight of your game as early as possible while, of course, always pushing to streamline, and search for players that enjoy that weight of game. Complex games are good. Don't be afraid to let your game be a heavier game that not everyone will want to play.
Attract the right players.
Right players, TC? That sounds pretty exclusionary. How are you supposed to know if your game is accessible to a wide variety of people if you don't try? Okay, if you want to waste time receiving inconsistent feedback and constantly questioning whether your game is simultaneously too complex or too easy, go for it. But the main problem with my aborted playtest was that it felt like a boring, confusing failure, and I couldn't tell if it was the game's fault or the player's fault. 5 consistent playtests later, it was the player's fault, and I'm glad I didn't overreact and simplify everything. Playtest complex games with core gamers, or hardcore gamers once you're more confident. Game groups are never perfect chunks of players of all the same taste and skill level, so there's bound to be a variety of opinions automatically.
Say no.
It's okay to say no. Basically, if you foresee multiple players running into comprehension issues, it's okay to put the game away and play something else. Worst case scenario, it's okay to politely request that certain players do not play, but it's fucking awkward. A complex board game's feedback is only as good as the players playing it. It's up to you what to do afterwards as you polish the thing up for years, but if you can get the right peeps playing, you're going to have the best possible chance. Actually, you know what? How about I make it easier for you, the designer, the game player, the concerned individual, to tell someone that they may not be ready for a certain game. We've all been through this. So I prepared a short, demotivational public service announcement that you can play for them to let them know kindly that they may want to reconsider. It might not work, but at least you tried. All right, so cue the outro music. Yep, there we go. All right, play it in the background, inspirational quote, blah, blah, blah. All right, show's over. Here we go. Hi, I'm TC Petty III, board game designer and internet personality. Your friend or concerned loved one is playing this message for you because you're excited to play a complex board game. And you know what? They're excited for you too. All those colorful pieces, intriguing stacks of cards, and glorious universal symbols. And just look at the size of that box. It can't be that hard, right?
Wrong.
Now you're probably looking across the table at someone named Mike, and you're probably thinking to yourself, but Mike is excited to play this game, and Mike is a goddamn idiot. While it may be true that all Mikes are kinda douchey, it's not Mike's intelligence that allows him to understand and play this complex game. It's his
level of experience.
Let's take a trip to the circus. Board games are a lot like a circus, but more specifically, let's say learning how to juggle. Sure, you can learn how to juggle in a few hours, fumbling and bumbling through it, but try juggling a chainsaw after that amount of time? Well, that's another dangerous story. However, if you juggle consistently every day for a few weeks, well, suddenly juggling becomes natural. You don't even think about it. And maybe instead of juggling that chainsaw, you start juggling with bowling pins, and then maybe 5 bowling pins, and then while riding a unicycle through a flaming hoop. The point is, jumping right into a complex board game when you're not prepared is a recipe for disappointment.
Keep life simple. stay happy.
But here's the thing. You can totally handle a complex board game. You're intelligent and capable, and is that cologne you're wearing? Because it smells really good. But like anything in life, if you take it slow, put on some Al Green, and build up to it, you'll have much more fun. And luckily, with board games, there are hundreds, nay thousands of gateway games you can play that even seasoned gamers enjoy and will be happy to teach and recommend and play with you. And this string of fun activities will build up your level of experience to new dazzling heights. Because games may be challenging, but they're a lot of fun too. You don't want to make games not fun, do you? Of course you don't. You're not a Mike. Your friend or loved one cares about you, and they want you to know that they support you in any personal decision you make. But why don't we play something a little lighter first so that we don't all want to strangle the fuck out of you by the end of the game? This is your pal TC saying thanks and happy gaming.
Is that your name on the list? Well, get in there then. Get to the bar and get buckled. Welcome to the guild. Ooh, Georgios.
Yes.
You're sounding a bit bunged up there.
I'm in a bit of a legal trouble.
Ooh, sounds interesting. Fill me in.
See that gentleman's club you might remember?
The one where I shit on the bar and you put an explosive in the toilet.
Yes, that one. Apparently they're suing me now for fraud. So
What did you fraudulently do?
Well, I don't know if I ever told you the story of how I got membership to the club.
You didn't. I thought you came with me on my membership card.
No, I got a premium membership. So basically, I went in, knocked at the door, looked at me, said, "What do you want?" And I thought, since this is a bar, I'm going to order something. So I thought, a glass of juice. Unfortunately, that's not what they understood. They understood something else, and all of a sudden, I have a premium membership now.
Ah, right, I see. Is that why you while we were in that bar, you shaved your moustache in that particular small postage stamp-esque style?
No.
Was that to keep in sync with the rest of the people there?
I thought about that now, but mostly, I just felt... I was just watching City Lights, and I thought, see, this is a man who knows how to, handle the difficulties of modern life.
I don't know what City Lights is, but it sounds enthralling, Georgios.
Isn't it a Charlie Chaplin film?
That's Bright Lights, Big Shitty, isn't it?
I thought it was that was that Michael J. Fox film.
That's right, where his neighbours are having sex all the time.
That's a good movie. I think any movie where the neighbours have sex all the time is a good movie. Because, you want your secondary characters to have sort of their own arc.
I'm worried, Georgios.
Why now? Are you worried that you're a secondary character? It's a legitimate worry.
I'm always the primary character in my own story, Georgios.
See, we both know that's not true, and that's why it's so sad.
Well, the thing is, I'm a little bit worried because since you transformed Tension and Release into Costa and the Bazookas.
Yeah, good.
And now they've become a traditional Greek folk band.
Well, we do have some influences of jazz and down-tempo soft rock, yeah.
Well, I'm worried that your success and your touring on the local Greek restaurant circuit might reduce your time and you might not be able to come to the guild as much.
Oh no, we come to the guild, which is fine. It's a basic.
No, I don't want them to come to the guild, Georgios.
See, that doesn't work because we've split the money that we made 3 ways.
What, you made money?
Sure, I mean, people pay to see us.
Really? I never got any money when I was with Tension and Release.
Anyway, my point is we've bought shares in this establishment now.
What? You're saying you part own?
Yes.
And Tension and Release part own?
More parts than me, but yeah.
So if I was to, I don't know, write Tension and Release are a pair of dickheads on the toilet wall, they could ban me from this place.
They wouldn't, but you could. I mean, they sort of try to erase the history as Tension and Release from Wikipedia and wherever.
What if I wrote Costas and the Bazookas can fucking suck my moussaka?
That's fine. You mean any press is good press.
What if I called them Malaka Lackers?
See, the great thing is they don't speak really all that much Greek.
What if I called Costas from Costas and the Bazookas a Malaka Lacker?
Then you would be insulting me, and that's not nice.
And you're telling me you part own this guild and you could throw me out and ban me?
Oh no, I've actually argued with them for a long time. You're not getting banned for now.
What do you mean for now?
I mean, I don't know how long I'm going to stay in the guild. So, I mean, as long as I own part of the guild, you're always welcome.
Anyway, so
you have your own booth. You have your own shitty place.
Well, I feel a little, I don't know, put out that you part own the guild and I don't. Have you signed a contract? What about Jörg?
Oh, actually, no. We're basically, that was. I didn't have anything to do with it, but that was kind of a hostile takeover idea from them.
And Jörg's not coming back?
He's still employed, but he doesn't own the guild anymore.
I think that's disgusting.
I agree with you, but the money was good.
All right. Well, anyway, what was the question, Georgios, from last week?
The question was, what in gaming makes you aggressive, and is aggression a good thing?
Was that how it was written, or did you just mess up the reading of it? Because I wrote it, so it's possible that that's how I wrote it.
It is what you wrote.
What did I write?
And is when is.
Let me directly read from the website, Georgios.
Go on.
I will directly read from the website, what in gaming makes you aggressive, and is when is aggression a good thing? I think that's basically clear, isn't it?
I think that's about as pure an English sentence as you can come up with.
All right, your parents come from where, Georgios?
Greece.
You grew up where, Georgios?
Germany.
My parents came from where, Georgios?
I'm going to guess England.
I grew up where, Georgios?
Nearby England.
So if we can accept that the sentence, what in gaming makes you aggressive and is when is aggression a good thing, is correct English, can we?
I mean, we could definitely overlook one of those mistakes.
I'm right. All right, Wamba the Fool, Georgios. What did Wamba the Fool? Do you think that's self-deprecation, or do you think he really is a fool?
No, I think he's just, he took on the part of fool and gave half of his name to that musical act.
Who?
The Beatles.
That makes perfect sense.
Well, he's the fool on the hill. Of course, it makes sense.
Oh, that's right. Wamba, write into the guild. Tell us if you live on a hill.
Yeah,
and that's what they didn't tell us in the song.
They indeed
that the fool's name was Wamba.
Yeah, I mean they,
I'm going to go and see Wamba this afternoon, George. How are you going to do that, Ringo? Because he's a fool and he makes me laugh. That was brilliant, wasn't it?
Amazing.
So, anyway, his answer, Georgios, to the question, which was...
And is when is.
What in gaming makes you aggressive, and is when is aggression a good thing? What was Wamba the Fool's answer?
The only time aggressive moves within the game would boil my pudding, which is a naughty thing to write on a public forum, is if they were unnecessary, i.e. didn't get the aggressor any closer to the win condition, or e.g. king making another player, because that's just bullying, which is not fun.
Yeah, well, we talked about this, didn't we? This
Possibly.
This Terraforming Mars thing, that you have cards that seemingly... Terraforming Mars junkies might tell me I'm wrong, but cards that just do something nasty. They don't benefit you, they just affect someone else. And that is always an aspect in design that annoys the hell out of me, because it's so mean, and I don't like... meanness for no reason,
I think there's always a reason for meanness. I think sometimes it's which is an old English word.
I can verify that, having been born in England, 2 English parents, and being raised there.
I'm sorry. Sometimes being mean to other players is forced upon you by the game's design. Sometimes these cards, the mean cards, are options with which you can sort of balance any lead another player has. I think those are the main... Well, sometimes, being mean to one another is the whole purpose of the game. But I don't think I've actually seen a lot of games, I've played any games where meanness exists for no apparent reason.
Well, it's that thing, isn't it? There's sort of two aspects to what Wamba says, which is you have the game compelling you to be mean, not to your benefit. And I think it's the Terraforming Mars thing. It's then just a matter of who you're mean to.
But aren't you getting an indirect benefit by aiming this card at somebody who's in the lead?
Well, that's right. I mean, not when they played it on me, but...
Yeah, but just using cards counter to its purpose.
Right. And then you're sort of... The person being meaned against is...
Again, you're English.
Thank you.
Yeah.
The person being meaned against gets offended, but that actually benefits kind of the whole table, right?
Right, yeah.
You're pulling back the leader. Then there's that other aspect where the game doesn't compel you to be mean in and of itself, but then you just decide, for whatever reason, whether they're the leader or not, or whatever, just to kick their sandcastles over.
Right.
And then that, I think, seems to wind people up more. It certainly winds me up.
Exactly, because I think it runs counter to this implicit assumption that we're all in this to have fun together.
Regardless of the game and how aggressive it is, we're all mates.
Exactly.
And we shouldn't try and annoy other people unnecessarily, right?
Exactly. And doing so for no reason, which I think is what what this chum is alluding to. Then if you attack someone for out-of-game reasons, it runs counter to the assumptions, to the magic circle idea, that we're part of a group. We all assume that we're playing this game together, that the basis of us playing together is that we all want to have a good time. Part of that good time is engaging in friendly competition, the operative word being friendly, doing something that doesn't contribute to the competition but undermines the friendliness feels like an insult.
Yeah. So, just a brief sort of sidebar, because he mentioned this, George.
Oh, we're at a bar now.
Are you bloody blind? You own this thing. What's
Yeah.
that over there, which Janine is walking behind, serving drinks, test tube cocktails?
Yes, but over there is the bar. This is the booth.
Yes, but I don't know if you're familiar with English. I mean, obviously you can see I am from the way I
Yes.
phrased the guild question.
Obviously.
Is the whole establishment is known as a bar?
That was a club because of the dance floor over there and,
Well, it's-
and the secretive compartments on the ground.
It's known as a bub or a
bub?
clar.
Club.
You can
Yeah.
choose whichever one you wish.
Right.
But kingmaking, what's your opinion on that? Because people seem to go mental about kingmaking. And I've been in games where you can't do that move, you're kingmaking. And so you get the rest of the table going, you can't do that, that's not fair, you're kingmaking. What's your opinion on it?
I don't care.
Yeah, me also. I think to grind a game to a halt, because you have, three options. One is completely obscure and would take you 20 minutes to choose, and then you have two other options which gives the game to someone else. Well, that's just the nature of the beast. It's got to the point where that's the choice I have to make, right?
I think if it happens at the end of the game, it's unavoidable. It should be done. You should do it and be done with it. If it's something that sort of affects the game early on, gives somebody a strong lead, that's very difficult to basically take away from.
Well, I think there's a difference between collusion and kingmaking, right? So if you have two, if you have two players and one player basically says, by their actions or explicitly, I'm going to operate in my way to allow the person next to me to win.
Right,
That's
yeah.
how I'm going to play the game.
I'm going to sort of download emails and send them, make them public to allow that person to win.
Exactly, something like that.
Collusion, basically.
White-haired, weird Australian people.
For example, yeah.
If you do that, then that's not on. That's against the spirit of the thing. I am going to subsume myself so this one person wins to the expense of everyone else.
Right.
But if it's at the end of the game and you've got two decisions to make this person win or this person win, well, that's the way the game has turned out.
Yeah, I think when we talked about AP, you always bring up this
Andrew
argument.
Price.
Yes, you bring up this argument that Andrew Price is actually all about being selfish. It's all about, me, I want to do the right thing. I want to do the best thing, and I don't care how long it takes, and I don't care how much I get on other people's nerves. This is about me. I think complaining about kingmaking, and this is me, pissing off people for no apparent reason, I think kingmaking has a certain sense of selfishness to it as well. It's the idea that I deserve to win based either on other people's mistakes or based entirely on my great moves or whatever. And if somebody else, because of their choices, keeps me from winning the game, this is unfair to me.
It's unfair to me. And even if it's your only choice, you shouldn't do it.
Yeah,
you should go outside and shout at the stars.
You should do the choice that benefits me and not benefit somebody else. I can understand being frustrated about kingmaking scenarios popping up in a game itself and the design, because if you're invested in getting validation from winning a game, this runs counter to it.
Yeah, I mean, if you've played the game for an hour and a half and you've done, to the best of your ability, you've done all the moves correctly and you think you've played pretty well, and the game forces another player to deny you your victory, I can understand how that's a little bit narking, but
I can understand that. I don't agree with it, but I can understand where people are coming from.
To sit there and moan for 20 minutes afterwards is just rank immaturity, and you should just get over it, right?
Possibly. I wouldn't use quite those harsh words. But yeah, generally, I think kingmaking isn't as big of an issue once you realize that winning a game is really, really irrelevant.
Absolutely. So, we go on to Let Me Entertain You's Rob Williams.
I don't get it.
Well, he shortened his name, Rob Williams,
yes,
so as to, hide his celebrity identity.
All right.
As that shit musician that brings out the shit music.
See, your opinion of 98% of all musicians is that they're shit. So
No.
This is not an allusion to anything.
Robbie Williams is crap, though.
You're wrong.
My God, Georgios, you're a Robbie Williams fan?
No, my girlfriend is.
Don't believe the hype, Georgios.
I've
It's
been
just
to one of his
it's a
concerts.
money-making factory. Don't believe the hype, Georgios. Don't give that man your money.
I won't.
Listen to proper music.
What?
Costas and the Bazookas. I really love them. They're great.
Fair enough.
Okay, so I'm going to read out a list of what Rob Williams has said, and I want you to tell me whether you think they would make you aggressive or not.
Right, go on.
Okay, so number one, where someone is a douche.
I'm leaning towards yes, that does annoy me because I find social behavior that really is selfish.
Give me an example of douchery. Douchebaggery, even.
Kicking the guy who's down,
Do you mean literally or figuratively?
either.
Excellent. Number two, they don't pay attention to rules explanaciones.
I only if it's followed up by either, but you didn't tell me that. That pisses me off. But if they don't pay attention and they need it explained during the game, I'm fine. And if they acknowledge that, I didn't pay attention, it's my own fault. How do I do this? I have no problem with that.
They rush other players.
Not aggressive, but again, it goes back to being a douchey behavior.
Well, it depends, Georgios, doesn't it? There are certain people who will go, oh, come on, do your turn, come on, do your turn, do your turn, go on, do your turn. And then when it gets to their turn, they sit there for 25,000 of your Earth years, and you go, do your turn, and then they look at you as if you've just pissed on their bonfire that they'd spent months building in their back garden for Guy Fawkes night.
Fawkes.
That's what his name is, Guy Fawkes.
Yeah. One of the spoony bards, right?
Now, Guy Spoon was his cousin, Georgios. He was the one who tried to blow up the Houses of Parliament using round cutlery as opposed to devil's tridents.
That makes sense. Rushing other players. Again, I think I realize. I think one of the most important things to understand about not being quarterback at a co-op game is giving people the space to make their own decisions. And I think that rushing other players sort of pushes people to sort of not own their decisions anymore.
But it's just a matter
to make a decision.
It's a matter of context, though, isn't it?
Oh, sure.
If someone's sitting there for 20,000 years to do their turn every bloody time,
Then you're not rushing.
then it comes to, well, okay, a point taken. So they're doing their turn before the players before them are done.
The cowardly answer would be that depends on the game, but for the most part, no. For the most part, I think even the most multiplayer solitaire games do rely on other people recognizing what you do and how it might affect their strategy. So doing your turn out of turn or doing your turn while people are busy with something else seems a bit underhanded.
Well, I pick up my cues, right?
Sure.
If someone's doing something and it's not necessary for them, it's not technically their turn, but they've got to choose between 4 cards, and that's all they've got to do, then I just do my turn, right?
Oh, yeah, no,
I don't wait for them to announce, oh, you've done it, and no, because it's just a waste of bloody time.
It usually is, but then, I mean, you have these situations where let's say I'm the man with the 4 cards in hand, and my choice of cards is slightly dependent on what the player after me is going to do. So if I can already see what you're going to do, it's going to affect my choice. Situations like these.
As you said, it comes back to context.
Right.
All right, so what have we got? They pick up pieces or cards because they are helping and move them or hand them to you.
Again, this goes back to, giving people their room to interact with the game, giving their choice. So basically, if somebody moves my pieces without me asking for them, or
they deserve knifing in the lungs,
they deserve to listen to tension release.
See, it's like, give me a card. If I've got to draw a card and it's the other side of the table, give me a card.
Awesome.
If I say to you, hey, could you move my fella, please, or move my thing along the score track for me? Fine. Don't touch my bloody pieces, though, unless I ask you to. Otherwise, Night of the Lung Knives, Georgios. Night of the Lung Knives.
The lung knives.
That's right.
Yeah.
They don't help when putting the game back in the box.
I don't mind that. I think I'm peculiar. No, not that peculiar for gamers, but I like putting things back the way I want them to, so if they don't help, that's fine. But if we're in the middle of the game, it's a big game, and all I'm asking is, put the cards together, put them in the box, and if they don't do that, that's dickish.
I know a person whose default move is just to get up and do something else after the game's finished. I want them dead, Georgios. I want them dead. Now, some people, and I love it when they do, I don't personally, but some people say, hey, I know how to pack my game away. You don't need to help me, please, I'll do it myself. And that's why I love it, because I don't have to do it, because I don't like packing shit up, it's boring. But if I pack shit up, I expect the people who played, especially if it's my game that I paid money for, and they haven't paid anything for the experience, I expect them to bloody pack up the game afterwards with me, to help me with the bloody task. And if they don't, they're twats.
Yeah, I think that's just basic. It's not even decency, it's just being polite. Being respectful of the time other people put into.
If you don't do it, you're
experience.
a fucking sociopath. You are a sociopath if you don't do it, Georgios. The 30-point scale on the psychopath test, that's one of them. They treat the game like crap. So they sleep with the game, right? And they don't call. They just ghost the game. The game's there, all thinking, oh, is he going to call? He was lovely. I enjoyed the cocktails. And then when we had the sexy, it was amazing. He did things to me that he made my meeples shiver like I've never had before. And then you don't get a phone call. You don't get even a bloody text message, Georgios.
You are aware that this guild is not your personal therapy session, right?
Then what the fuck am I doing here?
I have no idea.
What the fuck have I been doing for the last nearly 2 years, Georgios?
I honestly don't know.
I mean, I've been standing at the cliffside for 2 years, and it's the guild that stopped me jumping over.
I would think it's also the fence, but yeah.
Yeah, I'm not very active, and my hips are a little bit tight, Georgios.
There you go. Treating the game like crap, as in...
Well, you bend shit, and you fucking stick shit in your mouth, and all that sort of stuff.
Well, that's just disgusting, putting things in your mouth.
Well, it depends if it's food or not.
It depends on if it's other things or not, yeah. No, I think if you expand it into treating the game like crap, as in treating the game experience like crap, like you don't care, like, it's moaning and criticizing and just not investing at all, that's not good. That's I mean, I've fallen victim to that as well, so I can't be too harsh a critic, even though... actually, I can be and just...
Accept your hypocriticism, Georgios.
No, I wouldn't call
Hug it.
No, I wouldn't call it hypocriticism.
That's not actually a word, by the way. I'm making up
hypocrisy.
words. Yeah.
I won't actually admit to any hypocrisy, because I know that's been a fault of mine. I've done this when I really didn't enjoy a game, and it's something I'm trying to rein in, because I realize it's bad. It's bad for the experience. It's annoying for other people.
I completely...
You don't enjoy it yourself either. So
I mean, I'm one of those sort of moronic, sort of optimistic people, in the sense that I pretty much enjoy every game I play. There are a few games, Quartermaster General aside, there are pretty much all games I've played that I just actively enjoy, even if afterwards I come away from them thinking, okay, that wasn't as good as other things that I really like, right? So I don't generally tend to actively criticize something while I'm playing, simply because, not because I'm this great super person, it's just that I like stuff, right? But I can vouch for it that, especially if you've bought a game, and someone sits there and just absolutely shits over what you've just spent 50 quid on. Whether you want to or not, whether you're an adult and mature, you feel like a dickhead. It makes you think, and I've spent all this money on this, and maybe it is shit, and I'm stupid, and all those thoughts, whether they're just fleeting and they disappear and your self-confidence kicks back in, or whether it legitimately makes you think, that kind of thing makes you feel like shit. And someone who's doing it makes you feel like shit.
Yeah, exactly.
And they need to address that kind of attitude. Afterwards, to sit there and go, yeah, I think this has issues, or speaking to other people and that's fucking dreadful, wasn't it? That's fine.
I guess, yeah. Oh no, yeah. Like I said, I think being negative at the game table can be annoying, and it's one of the bad habits I'm trying to get rid of, because when I don't enjoy a game, I basically just shut down and just retreat and just don't do anything. But then again, I think this is... I'm not that... I can't bring myself to act like I'm enjoying a game more than I actually do. So if I don't enjoy myself, I'm just going to sit there and wait and just do my turn as quick as I can and not do anything.
Well, I try and extract as much enjoyment out of every situation, whether it be crappy or not, as I can. And some games are crap, but I don't see the benefit, unless I'm in a bad... Well, anyway, Georgios.
Yeah.
So, I've got a question for you.
Go on. Nobody can see you looking around shiftily.
How do I get in on this owning the guild stuff? It'd be great. Me and Janine could sort of part own the guild, and that could be like a present for her. Because she's been talking about getting me a gift recently, and I'd like to get her something back. So if I get her, get a guild... You own part of the guild, love.
Yeah, but...
How do I get in on that, Georgios?
I don't have a majority. You have to ask the Bazookies.
I can't speak to the bloody Bazookies. They hate me, Georgios.
And that's true.
I mean, basically, when I was part of Tension and Release, it was like, what's that Neil Young band with the 3 other blokes,
Crosby, Stills.
Nash and Young,
Yeah.
right? They were all right. Then Neil Young came in and blew them out the water. And then all the Neil Young songs were bloody amazing, and they got all resentful because Neil Young was obviously much more talented than they are. It was the same.
Wasn't he like a 40-year-old nun?
That's right.
Yeah.
And it's the difference between me and T&R.
You sing like a 40-year-old nun.
When I joined, they were like, that's the reason they threw me out of the band, because they were threatened by my amazingness. So I can't talk to them, George. Just can't you do it for me? Can you just have a word and say,
I don't think anyone's going to understand a single word you just said.
Well, obviously you'd clarify it up and tart it up. I mean, you know, you're clever, you can use the big words.
I'll talk to them, and maybe we'll get you a free ouzo once a week.
I want a part ownership, George. If you're going to have it, I want it.
Well, but you don't have the success of Costas and the Bouzoukis.
But I can have other success.
Go on then.
I'm gonna go to the shoppy wops. I'm gonna buy some summer roll mops. I'm gonna eat them. I'm not gonna beat them, 'cause I don't beat fish. I'm a fish guy. It's thick.
So 1 ouzo a month then.
Take it on, George.
I'm going to talk to the Bouzoukis.
It's crass, unsophisticated, and emotionally manipulative.
It's this week's review.
Revolution. Let me tell you about revolution. Let me tell you about 1956 and Budapest, a lovely place. But then again, that's true of most places, as long as you don't have to live there. Because once you do, you can't really ignore its flaws. And the flaws in Budapest came in the shape of Soviet soldiers patrolling the streets. They came in the shape of Soviet tanks reminding you of your place, and of Soviet rifles peeking out from rooftops to make sure you don't step out of line. That's where revolutions are born. It's where you run around the city trying to disrupt Soviet plans, where you reach out in the dark of night to recruit new allies for the cause, where you bring the people of Budapest food, supplies, or news from the outside world. You rally their support. You keep up their spirits and morale so you can call in favors in the days to come. Because before long, the State Protection Authority will respond. It will be sudden and merciless. One day, Janosch will simply be gone. Marta will not return from her run to Corvin Passage. Men in unmarked cars will simply make Emra disappear. But what's worse are the moments when you're trapped, when you need to make a choice if Christoph or you will stay behind so that the revolution will not simply falter on some small alley in Budapest but live on. And after 7 days, it will be over. Just like that. Maybe you will have changed history. Maybe the struggle will have been futile and Soviet occupation will continue unfazed. And then you ask yourself if it was worth it. And the answer... It's yes, of course. It's worth it. What a ridiculous question. Come on.
Yeah. Skip to the end.
It's the one sentence review.
Days of Ire makes you feel as though you're darting down alleyways and holding clandestine meetings in dripping cellars. For all that, though, it doesn't sacrifice enjoyment for historiosity.
Days of Ire's dedication to its historical source doesn't always result in the most elegant and accessible game, but it strikes the balance between being respectful to real-life events and being, simply put, entertaining.
Georgios? Ooh, what's that in the corner of the room?
I don't know, but it's eating peanuts with its nose.
So the elephant is wearing a bandana this week, Georgios, and it's walking around with a placard that says free peanuts for all, Georgios.
And, down with this sort of thing.
Exactly. So the elephant in the room with this game, I think, is probably the obvious question to ask about it.
I don't know if it's the obvious question. What's the one we settled on?
Is it political?
Right. Yes.
I asked you a bloody question there.
Yes. I'm going to answer this bloody question.
Good.
Soon. Right, I'm going to answer it now. Yes, I do think it's political. I think it's there's certain elements to it that make it well, let's narrow it down first. When I'm talking about a game being political, I'm not saying it's sort of has a statement to make, a strong statement put in the center of the game experience. It's all about, feel like this, understand this, stuff like that. Know that, the Soviet occupation was bad. But I think it's political in the sense that it does comment in a way upon what we do. And the moment you start to reflect about your actions in the game or realize what's going on, it does make you think. Like, one of the small details that I really like about this game is the way that, on the one hand, you have the revolutionaries, and on the other hand, you have the Soviet occupation. All the revolutionaries, all the freedom fighters you can sort of activate, all have names. They all have genders as well. There are silhouettes on them, some male, some female, more or less recognizably male or female, and they have name, a first name and a last name. All of the soldiers, all of the snipers that the Soviets use have no such thing. They just have values, and they have maybe what you need to spend to get rid of them. So already you have personalized side on the one hand and a faceless force on the other. And in addition to that, during the game, what's going to happen is you're going to lose freedom fighters. They're going to disappear. They're going to get killed. Things are going to happen that sort of remove them from the game. And you're removing a token representing a person with a first name and a last name and a gender. When I played it, it wasn't like deep emotion. I didn't start crying or anything, but it did recognize, these are people. These are people being removed for, fighting for the rights.
And not just removed, dying. I mean, they're dying. They're being killed.
Most of the time, yeah.
The game uses the word removed, but I think removed is clear what it means.
Oh, yeah, sure. I mean, as mentally, you can sort of, depending on how it happens, you can sort of go, all right, they were basically taken by the secret police maybe, and they're jailed up in some cases. In some cases, yes, if snipers attack, there's a good chance they are not removed because they decided not to fight for freedom anymore.
Well, I mean, the question is it political? And you've put it exactly right. It's absolutely intrinsically political,
right?
Because you have a good side and a bad side, right? The Soviets in this are obviously the aggressors, and they are the negative side. They are the villains in this.
Yeah. Interesting enough, though, one thing, again, this is history, of course, being repurposed to become almost a satirical point in this game. The State Protection Authority, as I understand it, was a real thing.
Right.
And you realize when you play it now, the State Protection Authority is basically a militia whose only purpose is to keep the oppressive structures of the society running by basically removing or killing any dissenters. Police.
It's the Ministry of Truth. It's the Ministry of Peace, isn't it? It's that communist rhetoric was so insidious that it would couch these terms that were ostensibly comfortable, familiar.
You want state protection. It sounds like a good thing. If you're more or less a centrist person who believes, we should have a state government, we should have peace on the street, we should have a fair treatment of people in this land, then, supporting something like the State Protection Authority seems reasonable. It doesn't seem like, these guys are going to find you and kill you if you say the wrong thing.
But it's absolute newspeak, right? Because what it means is killing people who want freedom.
Exactly.
Which is so the way reality is sometimes so much stranger than fiction, that they would come up with a name like that is so wonderfully, deliciously perverse,
Yeah, but the great thing is that we're putting it in this game, even for someone as ignorant of Eastern European history as I am, and I'm deeply ignorant of these things, I immediately could see, just how absurd it is.
Right.
How intrinsically villainous the whole thing becomes, because you're playing the State Protection Authority even. It just, invokes this image of thugs using the cover of the government to be thugs.
And it's all that thing that communism did it, Nazism did it, these totalitarian states do it. It's all about having a get-out clause. It's all about saying we're doing this for the benefit of you. There is something intrinsically human, I guess, that doesn't want to be brazenly evil. They just want to say, no, it's the State Protection Authority. I'm killing you for your own benefit. There's something about communism teaches us this lesson that evil is so rare within humanity. Everyone wants to be the hero of their own story, and something like the State Protection Authority just proves to you that these people are justifying their actions to themselves, which is so interesting. What's interesting, is it political? I think the game is clearly political. I think the game pits a goodie against a baddie. Mm-hmm. Now, I don't know about the Hungarian Revolution of 56. I don't. It's not something I've read about. But what this...
Just a quick aside. One of the 3 rule books that the game comes with actually has a breakdown of the various events that are played during the game and gives you a small blurb about the history of it. So if, unlike me, you're interested in history, there's some things to sort of get you started in the general shape of these, I think, 7 days, I think it was.
But it does intrinsically evoke politics, right?
Yeah.
This game. There is no shying away from it. And it's one of, I think, this new wave of games. Whereas, war games, it's different to war games in the sense that war games pitch themselves as neutral, right?
Right.
In that you are simply reenacting the battle of it. There is no moral standpoint that the author is giving you. They're giving you the facts on the ground. The Germans had this many, the Russians had this many, the British had this many. And now it's up to you to recreate that as an historical exercise, to be interested in the art of war. There's no intrinsic moral standpoint that the author is offering. Whereas this, it's clear the author is saying Hungarians good, Soviets bad, right?
Yeah, I'm again, I've only read about war games. I haven't played any of them. I've just never felt that interested in it.
Well, the ones I've played are very much like that. I played Maria, which is a war game, and you play the French, you play the Austrians, and you play the Prussians.
Right.
And there's no indication that people are aggressive. There's no indication that people are doing things immoral. It's simply the movement of pieces on a board to evoke battle. That's what it is.
Yeah.
There's no authorial voice, I guess is what I'm saying.
But not again, it's the wrong word, but it seems to me that I think we've become very accustomed to removing ethical concerns from things that are inherently ethical, be it conflict, be it combat, be it economics. The idea that none of these are moral is just absurd.
Well, this is my issue with war games. This is why I find war games tricky and I find them difficult. It's almost the fact that there is no authorial voice, that there is no morality attached to it, because I kind of can't deal with war without the ethics baked into it, because war is intrinsically ethical, right?
Or unethical, if you want to speak.
Well, exactly.
So, what did you think of my interactive, candid photo montage?
Well, it was certainly an experience.
All right, so I'll just briefly explain my experience of this game.
All right, and then I'll tell you where you're wrong.
Okay, good. So I don't know anything about the Hungarian Revolution, as I've said, but I guess the experience the game is trying to go for is, do I feel... So basically the game, you play 2 sides. You play the Soviets or you play the Hungarians.
Yes, there are like 2 versions in the game. There are two ways to play: the full co-op version, where you play against a deck of cards, and the regular 1 versus up to 3 players version, where one player plays the Soviet invaders and the other side plays the Hungarian freedom fighters.
And I was playing the Hungarians and Georgios was playing the Soviets. And my colleague that I was playing with was playing the Hungarians with me. And so did I feel like I was playing the Hungarian Revolution of 1956? Well, frankly, I've no idea, because I don't know enough about it.
Right. But that...
Did I feel like I was playing a revolutionary force against a vast umbrella machine that was trying to crush me? Absolutely.
Right, yeah.
I felt that my guys, that I was moving, dodging to different locations, trying to avoid snipers and groups of militiamen and tanks, and I was, going up to people I knew to be revolutionary, saying, "Wake up, come with me, let's do this now," and felt like I was moving around and doing little pot shots to undermine this grand apparatus. I felt like I was in a revolution.
Right.
As the Soviets, did you feel the way I felt that you felt to me?
In a way, I think one of the few flaws that this game has is that, at least from the Soviet side, it feels a bit clunky to play. You're playing through 2 different phases each turn as the Soviet player, one before the revolutionaries and one after revolutionaries. A lot of what you do as the Soviet player has a lot to do with handling, has to do with managing numbers, like you play certain cards to get certain points, and then you spend those points again to move things around. it seems, like I said, it seems clunky. It probably could have used another polish. So a lot of what I experienced as a Soviet player was more or less bureaucracy. Sort of, I need to do this so I can do that, but first I need to pay this for this, and I pay points to do this, but I don't have enough points to do that. You're basically managing a resource that comes from your hand and affects the board. And I didn't get to the point during any of the games I've played as a Soviet player where I felt I have enough of a handle on my turn to play strategically, to make sure, right, I'm saving this up to trigger this. I'm using this I never had this feeling of pursuing an actual objective, having an idea of how to stop the revolutionaries. So I think I would still need a few more games to really get to that point and maybe give a more, informed opinion on how the game works on a strategic and tactical level. So far, I was just managing things, throwing anything I could at you and see what happens.
Whereas I found with the revolutionaries, it was incredibly elegant, incredibly easy to grok, made a lot of sense, and not just how to play the game, because, that's a thing, but what I should do.
Right.
What was tactically valuable. What is expedient now, and how to react to what you did to me. And now this might just be, extrapolating too much, but the idea that your turn is quite unwieldy and my turn is quite simple is how it is. Revolutionaries, they don't have so much at their command, but they're much more nimble. They can move and they can hide and they can shift and they can do things. Whereas the apparatus, you had many times you were just putting tanks and snipers and just boof, boof, bombarding the board. But for you, it's like turning an oil tanker, whereas I'm driving a little speedboat, right? Which evokes that feeling to me. The experience felt to me like a revolution. Certainly on my side, I felt like a revolutionary, which I think is a real achievement.
Oh yeah. Like I said, I think I'm unsure whether this is intentional or not, or whether it's just, a nice benefit, but I have to actually floor the game or criticize it for having a learning curve for one party that's much steeper than for the other party.
Right, I assume it is.
Because for a game that's supposed to thrive on being played as not a cooperative, as a competitive game, you do want a sort of level playing field in the sense of both groups know what they're doing, what they're supposed to do. And it took me quite a while to figure out this engine of which cards I should play and when I should play them, even though I think they're very interesting decisions in what you do. A lot of it is just, when I play the Soviet play, it's a lot of cleanup, a lot of laying cards out and then picking up cards and placing them somewhere. And I feel another pass design-wise could have cleaned this up, made it a little bit neater without, losing this unwieldiness, but just giving me a clear idea of what I'm supposed to do, because I honestly had no idea.
But at times, I legitimately felt like, shit, we are being bombarded here.
Right.
We are really up against it. And that's, as the revolutionaries, that's how you should feel. I think you should feel like you're mice attacking elephants, which really I did. And I think that is a real testament to the game. What I can't do is talk from the other side, because I didn't play it.
Alright, so how about this? You take a tenuous grasp of reality, a lot of condescension, at least 4 cups, and a slow-wittedness masked through pretensions of prolixity.
Well, that's you, isn't it?
Yeah, it's design.
So talking from the Russian side, how did you feel that the design of your turn played into you feeling like a huge superstate trying to crush a rebellion?
I'm not sure how it did. I think apart from how it affected my experience, I think the rules themselves do provide interesting decision spaces. In that it's split up, like I said earlier, it's split up in 2 phases. For the one that happens before the revolutionaries is, I don't know what it's called, basically the Soviet phase, if you want, where you play headlines, where events happen, where certain things happen that give you, as a Soviet player, points, or give you the option to trigger certain events, vaguely reminiscent of Twilight Struggle or 13 Days. And
I mean, certainly you can definitely see Twilight Struggle written all over this game with that particular aspect.
Right, yeah. So basically, certain cards give the revolutionaries a benefit, but you get points for that, which you can spend later. Or certain cards you have to choose either for the point value or for the event they
Is it
provide.
possible to do a game about the Cold War where you don't have choose the event or take the points? Because seemingly to me, it doesn't seem possible.
No, it just seems like such a potent way of creating tension in a player. Personally, while I like the mechanic, I think it's a bit not quite worn out. But if I see another Cold War game that with the same idea, I'm going to be a bit disappointed that there aren't new ideas in there. It works as a mechanic; it's interesting, but there's definitely more you can get out of it. So that's quite interesting. And then you, somewhat nebulous, then you move certain, I think your tanks, you can move them around or you can put new tanks on the board. And then the revolutionaries take their actions. And then comes the state protection agent, authority phase.
Yeah.
Which I actually quite like because basically you have a hand of 8 cards. You play them in any order you want to affect basically all the militias, the snipers, move them around, let them get new militias onto the board, let them attack people, and so on and so forth. But once you play them, it takes an entire turn to put them back into your hand. So basically there's an up and down in how often you can actually attack.
But my God, that when you have a lot of cards in your hand, you really feel as the revolutionary that you just get this flurry of blows into your face that's almost crippling. I mean, it's really, really quite overwhelming.
Exactly. And this is the part where I think the design works really well, both for the psychological effects you mentioned, but also because it gives you a simple choice. Do I use all the cards now, or do I keep some of them in hand for next turn so I don't spend all my military energy now and have next turn, they don't have anything to fear from me next turn.
Attrition or destroying, right?
Yeah. So this is really, really well done. It's just the first part with the events, with the headlines, with collecting command points to use either to place new cards onto the board or to put new tanks onto the board or move them. That's really muddy. I think this is where the game needed a bit of a cleanup, because even though a lot of the other things are nicely supported by tokens, the command points aren't. Basically, you just add them up in your head, unless, I have chosen this card for an event, therefore I put it aside and don't edit. It's just, it's not even close to breaking the game or anything like that. But it is, I feel, unnecessary handling time that should have been cleaner. And I had to look up at least 4 times the order in which, when do I play which card, what does it count as, and where do I spend it? And I'm sure I screwed it up a few times, but I feel I've played this game more than a half a dozen times by now. Maybe more. But I still stumble over the same rules. And that's not, to me, a sign of an elegant rule set. At least this part, I think, is really difficult. State authority agency, state whatever, that works fine. It's simple, it's straightforward, and it does great ways in how you affect the other players. But the first part,
You see, I'm going to highlight one aspect, and I talk about this, I think we talk about this a lot on this show, is how you deal with complexity. Mm-hmm. And there are some games that just put everything out straight in front of you, first turn, and you have to try and deal with that. Fields of Arla does that. You can do literally bloody everything on your first turn. Whereas there is a really clever mechanic in this game. So basically, as revolutionaries, you can go to different locations and you can use an action to wake up a revolutionary fighter, right?
Activate them, yeah.
You activate them. And some of them just offer you icons that allow you to fulfill criteria for events. You need to get rid of events because if there are too many events on the board, you lose. But then other revolutionary fighters have special abilities. Mm-hmm. And it could have been he could have just said, okay, you have these special abilities and you can choose on these special abilities. But what's so great is, firstly, the complexity, the extra rules that what special abilities do are revealed gradually throughout the game. So you're not taking on huge amounts of information. But secondly, what it does is it gives you as a player the impetus to move. You go, look at what this guy can do. We need to get there. We need to activate this guy so that we can then utilize this to do this. That's what rules are there for. Rules are there to give players impetus to play.
Oh, yeah.
And having these special abilities on the fighters that you need to activate that are in certain locations gives you a wonderful impetus to jump around the board and do different things.
Yeah.
And I think that's really bloody clever.
Yeah, I think it does a lot to sort of create this narrative in your head. And I think this is really a strength, very much for the revolutionary side, that it creates this narrative of what's going to happen. You need this, you need to sort of activate this guy. You need to sort of get him on your side so they can support you in the fight against the Soviets.
That's right.
The narrative is just there. It just pops up in your mind. You don't have to employ Mariner's Law to sort of come up with a complex explanation because it's right
there. This is theme and mechanics writ large.
Yeah,
right?
This is really, really well done. These are the mechanics that really work to highlight the experience, to sort of create the experience that you want, to make you think along the lines of the experience of the theme the game wants to portray.
And what this does that Barcelona kind of failed to do,
right,
is it allows those stories to emerge. Barcelona it wanted to tell you the specific story about Barcelona so much that it would sacrifice usability for chunks of historical information. Mm-hmm. Now, the fact is, if you're au fait with the Hungarian Revolution, each of these revolutionaries has a name, and I'm sure he's got 2 radios because this guy was in charge of communication during the revolution. Possibly, I'm sure if you're an expert on this, you could see where they're thematically connected, right?
Yeah.
Whereas if you're not, it still doesn't matter. The historical, the feeling of being a revolutionary, waking up people who can help you, activating other revolutionaries is universal. And this is what this game tries to do. It's set in a specific time, but it's universal and you can understand that struggle. Whereas Barcelona tried to be so specific, so unique to that particular time and place that it became something that you couldn't identify with. It was alienating because it was so specific. This, I think, operates on 2 levels. It gives you the absolute sort of feeling of being a revolutionary and what that means, and waking up this guy allows me to do this. But I am sure if you're an expert on the Hungarian Revolution that you'll recognize these people and go, I see.
Possibly, yeah. I think this game throws in details in just the right level that it enhances the experience as opposed to taking, sort of confusing you with information that you can't quite place.
It doesn't sacrifice usability for historiosity, right?
Yeah, well, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure the Soviet side kind of works the way it's supposed to work, but like I said, I had issues with the usability of the Soviet side. It's really a lot of busy work, a lot of, management of cards and, filling up cards, drawing cards, placing them, adding up numbers. Kind of works, but like I said, I needed it to be more focused on the gameplay, and I just couldn't get there even after more than 6 plays.
Playing this made me want to play.
So, what did this game make you want to play, young Georgios?
I don't know if it made me want to play it, but I was curious how the 2 games would compare to one another, and in order to do that, I would sort of need to refresh my memory of it. And I would need to refresh my memory of Star Wars Rebellion.
That makes perfect sense to me.
Well, there you go. It's also an asymmetric game. You have an overwhelming force on the one side and rebels on the other side. And when I wrote the review, one of my main complaints is that it is a long game, and it feels like a long game. It's very much trudging along. And when you have something interesting happening, you end up with a combat mechanics that are really, really bad. Well, I really don't like them. I think they're really dull and uninteresting and, detriment to the game experience. And again, it's very long. Days of Ire is not very long. It doesn't feel long. You have 7 turns that are over fairly quickly. You're very straightforward, what you're supposed to do. And the combat mechanics, as they are very simple. And even though there's occasional, military conflict, like punctuating those turns you play, it never feels like it's a focus of the game. Whereas with Star Wars Rebellion, it does kind of feel fairly central because
2 games bolted onto each other, essentially.
Almost. I think one very, very interesting game, very thematic, very, very evocative, very, very clever in how it gets you to think, the way those sides would be thinking. Like, quite literally how you described it, the big behemoth who needs, a long time to sort of turn around and realign their focus on a different location. And, the nimble rebels flying by the seat of their pants, sweating bullets, hoping to just last one more turn. It works very well in that sense. And then you get to combat and it's really, really stupid.
Right.
Apparently the announced expansion is going to change combat around. So who knows? It might become a better game. I hope the team variant becomes better as well. But yeah, those are basically the games that Days of Ire reminded me of. And I'm leaning towards giving Days of Ire the upper hand, whatever. Because it's neater, it's more interesting, and it doesn't, interestingly enough, since I don't know much about this Hungarian Revolution, it doesn't feel like a cheap remix of events, whereas Rebellion feels like a silly remix for no purpose.
Right.
So you have, all of a sudden, I don't know.
Wookiees.
Chewbacca on Grishnik.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. But,
that probably means something.
Probably. No, but you have certain people, instead of, say, Han Solo being frozen carbonite, you have Princess Leia frozen carbonite, or Luke all of a sudden becoming a traitor, and things that seem funny, but they lose it just becomes a very, very weird take on stories you already know. And it's not evocative. It's just, it's something else happened. The same story beats, just, with the characters exchange. And
which is a bit cheap, right?
It is cheap and it doesn't really give you anything. Whereas, since I don't know any of the people involved in the Hungarian Revolution, it always feels like a little bit like of a loss if if a revolutionary freedom fighter gets killed that you really need it. Like, if you take a hit and you need to sacrifice a revolutionary, it hurts. Even They have a name, but it hurts because not because they have a name, but because maybe they were really helpful, but you can't afford to take another hit yourself, so you have to sacrifice that person. And it feels harsh. And it feels harsh in a way that the same events do not feel harsh in Star Wars Rebellion.
Yeah, for me, I'm going to sort of break with tradition here to some degree and choose a game that I haven't played yet. And that's another game that sort of has this someone running, darting away, and that's The Hunt for the Ring by Ares Games that's coming out at Essen. And I've watched videos on it, it looks enthralling, but I think it evokes a similar kind of feeling, going back to the topic. That idea of one party sort of darting around trying to avoid this great apparatus trying to just crush them,
Right.
And that seems really interesting. And I think maybe playing Days of Ire will change my feeling about hidden movement games. Because if I can see them as that, then that might make it interesting. And, I mean, Hunt for the Ring looks incredibly innovative.
Right.
The fact that it's a game that has two halves in which what you do completely changes from one half to the next. The character you play, but also the mechanics you play, seems really, really interesting. And that is the darting around elements of Days of Ire has inspired my enthusiasm for Hunt for the Ring. So should people go out and buy Days of Ire, Georgios?
I think if the things we talked about in the last 14 hours or so seem interesting and something you might enjoy, yes, I would still, the caveat is still that the rules are a bit clunkier than they could be. For somebody who puts a lot of value on elegant and accessible rules, this is kind of a hurdle. If you're willing to put in the time to really get into it, I'm not saying the rules are hard to understand. I just struggled with them, and I could imagine other people struggling with them at first as well. And if you're willing to put in the time and aren't put off by at least one half of the game, really struggling to get things into the head and actually find their way through these phases of their turn to figure out how to play effectively. If you're willing to put in the time, I think it's a worthwhile investment. I think it's an interesting game. I think generally this isn't the worst way to spend your hard-earned money.
I've got a caveat because I've only played one side.
Right.
So I can't really speak to the whole game, but I really enjoyed this game. It made me feel like I was doing what I was doing. The decisions were interesting. Playing in a team often annoys me, but this time it really worked. We were able to divide our resources correctly. We were able to go and snuff out fires in different areas where we needed to snuff out fires. This game was great fun, but also not only that, it didn't hang around too long. It started off good and it left before it got boring. With the caveat that I don't know what the Russian side is like to play, I would say go and try Days of Ire. It's really good fun. Certainly the revolutionary side is tight, interesting, and you feel like you're fighting a battle.
Yeah, and I mean, we talked about how political it is, and I still think that this is the kind of game that is, if you're so inclined, you're more likely to talk about concepts like armed resistance, concepts like an oppressive government. You're more likely to end up with a discussion about these things after playing this game than, say, Uno.
Right, well, I've got to go now, Georgios, because I'm feeling pretty hungry. So as an exercise, Georgios, to unblock your nose,
Oh, good plan. Go on.
tell the people how they can contact us.
It's infoperfected.com for the website. It's infoperfected@gmail for the emails. It's perfectedinfo or infoperfected at Twitter. It's perfect information on Instagram, and it's perfect information on the Facebooks. And finally, it's the Guild of Perfect Information on Board Game Geek. If you need a number, it's 2348. There's no extra password to come in, but if you sign up, you get a free micro badge, or at least the Geek Gold for a free micro badge.
And also, we're still running the appeal for Games for Africa. We're going to run this for a week after this show
Games
goes
for
out.
Africa totally sounds like Bob Geldof, doesn't it?
Certainly does. All right. Now, we're running the Games for Africa thing here. You know what I mean? Fucking give us some money for the fucking games. Like, you don't fucking give us some money, fucking what you looking at, you fucking twat.
And with that, we lost our 4 Irish listeners. Well done.
And we're going to run this for a week afterwards, and then we're going to basically collect everything together in 3 hubs. One in Holland, one in Britain, one in Germany. If there's still people in America who wish to help coordinate this, that would be great. And then we're going to work out how to get them over there. And then we've already received some money to help with shipping, which is absolutely fantastic, but we're probably going to need a little bit more. But when we're organised and we know exactly what we've got, then we'll do that. And if you want to help us, that would be amazing, because these kids are really going to use these games, and if you're not playing them, well, someone else will, and they will really get a lot of pleasure out of them.
Yeah, pretty much. It's a good thing to do. Add some good karma to your karma bank account if you believe in karma. If you don't believe in karma, I don't know how to tell you.
Because instant karma's going to get you.
No, that's you're misapplying this again.
Say goodnight, Georgios.
No, I'm going to explain John Lennon lyrics to you.